All right, hello everyone. My name is Brendan Casey. I am a senior security analyst or engineer at Medica, which is a regional health insurance company. It looks like we kind of have a smaller crowd, so while we go through this, there we go. If you have any questions, feel free just to raise your hand and interrupt me. This shouldn't take too long, so I'll let you guys get to lunch probably a little bit earlier, not hold you too long. So kind of just go through the, first, back, there we go. There we go. Just like the original business issue that we had that kind of started this GDR project, I'm not really an IAM person. My background is more offensive security. I kind of fell into this project and took it over. And then we're going to just go through some of the specific use cases. Okay, so the original business issue was legal and KPMG kind of came in and did an audit and said we needed to know where our PHI, protected health information, is located. I mean, just saying we know that we have PHI in our environment wasn't enough. We actually needed to know exactly where it was. And then another of the process was how do we actually identify the PHI in our environment? Mainly, it's like, there's different pieces of information that you need to actually have it be PHI, like name, address, social. And then another part of this project was just doing, this very, very touchy. How do we, so here we go. How do we restrict access and locate business owners when we identify folders and documents that have PHI? Because a lot of the time, somebody will have done a project, information gets put onto a network share and then kind of forgotten about. But before we can just go and get rid of it or clean up access, we'd actually have to know who owns that data. So this was before I actually came to, as an employee at Medica. They did some POCs of data governance tools, and the tools that they tested were index engines, global velocity, and Varonis. So Stephen talked about Varonis before, and that's kind of the tool that we ended up going with. And I think it was in our environment for about 6 months before I came onto Medica. It was kind of given to me as to take over. So as the owner of it, there were some of the specific use cases that we used the tool. And first was the main use that we do is data classification, which kind of goes back to that KPMG audit of locating PHI. But I've tried to expand the platform and find other use cases. And so there'd be examples of somebody in marketing has a text document with their passwords, including personal passwords, that should not be on our network shares. So that would just give us the ability to identify pieces of sensitive documents that probably shouldn't be there, or have a discussion about whether we can clean it up. Another is like copyright material, which somebody is at their job listening to music, or they have software and it really shouldn't be on their system or on our network shares. So we have the ability with the classification engine to, there we go. Classification engine just to look for those files, automatically identify it. I get a report, we have conversations and clean up. This really wants to go forward. Another is like lost contract. It was an instance where looking for keywords. So all right. I'm just going to put this down and hopefully it will stop moving. So there was a contract that our department had that IT was looking for related to a business contract from, I don't know, a couple years ago. And the way that the classification works, and this kind of goes back to the PHI, is tuning regular expressions. So for example, looking for PHI across huge amounts of data source, it's just a number. It's like a few digit number. And the false positive rate is huge. So when we initially rolled this out, we were getting like hundreds of thousands of hits just because it would see a 9-digit number, think it was a social security number, and flag the file. So part of my work with the platform is to actually, I crafted some regular expressions looking for keywords like SSN, social, and then looking within like a range of whether a number matched. And that actually gave us a lot better results because just out of the box looking for a short number. And we've actually run into this issue with other tools, not just the Varonis platform, but Splunk, Symantec, DLP, those type of tools will be looking for a social, and the problem is it was just such a generic number that it's hard to actually pinpoint that without some other data points. So another of our usages of the platform is actually doing like forensic investigation. So HR or some other, a manager through HR will be, can we see what this person was doing? Like what files were they accessing? Were they accessing sensitive files? Were they going off to the network share and deleting a batch of files, copying a batch of files? So that kind of, it's being able to historically look back and review access and activity. Part of the cleanup, the slides that kept jumping forward, there's actually, part of it was to clean up like stale data, permissions, and access, which Stephen touched on, is really important, just like locking down. Okay. Well, presentation done. Yeah. All right, back. If it will go back. Okay. Another is like crypto alerts, just having relatively real-time alerts of mainly CryptoLocker legacy, like legacy CryptoLocker activity, where there was some files got encrypted, they left some trace files, and then being able to go back and be like just doing some cleanup. And UBA we actually have set up so that we thankfully have not had any in our environment since we've been running the UBA platform. But the idea is then just kind of getting notifications so that when our network share, if files started getting encrypted, we would be alerted right away. And all of this data, I have it hooked up going into Splunk. So that's kind of our source of truth for getting a lot of log information and finding correlations and tying things together. All right, now we can go, oh, well, it preempted. Kind of like what Ralph was talking about earlier, this is just kind of a trend over the past year across one of our network shares of just, you can see there's some drops where cleanup was done, like a huge cleanup was implemented. But generally over time, it's just, we're a growing company and our network shares are growing. And that just, because of that, the number of files and then, next slide, folders are also just been increasing over time, and I'm sure it's going to continue increasing. And it's just kind of, circles back to an issue where, managing this is very hard. Like managing this on a manual level, especially like permissions, trying to fix permissions, I've done it and it's not possible. So having some ways to help give me back more time to do other things. All right, so to jump. Okay, nope, that's the right one. So it will, there we go. This is actually just some statistics for our specific folder, where before it was about a year ago, and then after this was a active cleanup. There were a few files that were identified as having PHI. They were from a previous information security team many years ago that had just kind of sat out there. It wasn't anything too sensitive, but we, of course, cleaned it up. And then just the reduction, just the initial reduction of, 40% of the directories, 50% of the files, and then just size reductions. So not even looking at a management perspective of reducing the amount of data that you have and stuff that you have to go through, just giving back that disk space, even though disk space is cheap, just having fewer files and directory structures just makes life a lot easier. And being able to find things, not having to have stuff buried. and making sure that you reduce any kind of potentially sensitive files. All right. So this was actually going back to the increase in data and permissioning, like just increase the amount of files and folders that just over time. I have set up, there's an automation engine functionality which automates the process of cleanup of permissioning and of cross folders and files. And within a 10-day span, I just kind of configured this, was able to go through our entire network share and fix everything. And now, I mean, that could be great, but I can see, I get a weekly report and stuff always gets broken, or somebody copies the folder in marketing into another department's folder and it breaks in permissioning. The ability is to actually have scheduled tasks that it will go automatically out and fix it. So I have weekly tasks for the problematic directories, or departments that don't really adhere to how copying files and folders should be done. And I've been able to keep down, not only have this reduction in fixing, but also maintain it with very little effort on my part. So kind of going back to the justification process, so how kind of we were able to sell this. There was we're working on high trust certification, and Varonis actually has a very nice little chart. I mean, we're a health insurance company. It's kind of like a PCI for health insurance companies. And Varonis has a very nice ability to add value towards that and increase our score. I guess just vendor reduction, so we're able to do a lot of things. It's actually when I'm talking to other, I've been trying to get other parts of the IT to start using it and using the tool just to get more value out of it. And there has been very positive feedback, just not just for our own uses in security, but for example, there was an issue where a folder was automatically getting removed. And the permissions getting changed on it. So we were able to set up an alert, and the employee was able to monitor it and see exactly, and it was like, find out the service account that was automatically changing it because of a scheduled task and fix that. It's just, there's a lot of value. It's almost, there's so much in the tool that there isn't just one thing. Like you could just be siloed doing one thing like data classification and cleanup. But it's a suite of tools, to be honest. And yeah. And then kind of how we were able to expand the platform is going through this ITSC, the steering committee, which is going through our SVP, our CIO, and then the director level reporting along with finance, and just explain to them about the risk reduction and increased security and benefits that we can get from this. And already we've seen, it was very positive. And yeah, I think that is actually it. So does anybody have any questions or like me to expand upon anything, or yeah, go for it. No time. So once you have the environment, like the Varonis, so the question was how long did it take the automation engine to get set up and running? The way that Varonis licensing works is that once you have the platform installed, it's just installing a license key. And then the functionality just gets unlocked and it's already built in. So it's not like you have to install anything new. It's just a matter of, and also the way that everything works is like the learning curve. Once you start picking up one area of the product, using other areas of it is a very similar interface and configuration. So in that 10-day span, once we unlocked, licensed it, it was immediately, day one. Started just going through, and I mean, I guess maybe there was probably about an hour or so just looking through the documentation, making sure that I wasn't going to lock everyone out of all the files and delete some root level permission. But other than that, it was almost instantaneous. So, question. Any unexpected things that I found? So the question is, was there any unexpected things that I found as part of this project? There were, I mean, I guess the passwords thing. I mean, that's not too surprising, but when you find someone that has their personal passwords in a work document on a network share, and you're looking through it and be like, well, this person, you have access to all their stuff. And then I mean, that was something a little bit unexpected for me, just from being a security person, thinking, putting my sensitive information out there. Let's see, what else? I mean, it's mainly like old projects that would have sensitive information that get put out there and then just forgotten about. And I guess, again, as a security person, it kind of makes me cringe thinking, you know, you would want to have that cleaned up or removed and not just let it leave there, but it kind of it sits there and gets forgotten. I think actually relatively recently, maybe a few months ago, there was an instance, this wasn't necessarily sensitive information, but it was somebody in one of the departments, like root level folder departments, needed some files backed up or restored, and they did that for the entire directory. So this was huge amounts of data. I think it was a couple, like at least a terabyte just worth of data. And the folder got set to hidden. It was a backup folder got set to hidden. They restored their files, and then it got forgotten about. So we had just a root level folder cloned sitting out there with the same permissions, but just hidden and forgotten about. So I was like, okay, well, can we delete this? Yes. Why is this here? We don't know. It just got forgotten about. Blew it away, and yeah, that was kind of, I mean, it's just kind of like little weird quirks like that, but nothing too outlandish. Any other questions? All right, well, I guess we can go to lunch then. All right, thank you.